Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Faulkner, and we've got a good one for you today. I am delighted to be joined by no other than Elite Series angler Beau Browning, and a whole lot of you are going to recognize that name. And Beau has certainly off to a fast start in the Elites, but for those of you who don't know him, he's originally from Hot Springs, Arkansas. He's the pride of Lake Hamilton High School there, where he fished for the team. He then did 2 years at Drury University before winning 2 national championships and graduating with a degree in communications and a minor in marketing from the University of Montevallo. Go Falcons. He had won the Bassmaster College Open at Lake Norfolk. He won the MLF, College Open at Lake Dardanelle. And this is fascinating. I think the only person I know ever having done this actually qualified for the Elite Series through the Opens in 2024 as a senior, as he was still in college and graduating. And so he is a pro staff member and sponsored by Bass Pro Shops, Ranger Boats, Gamma Line, Z-Man Fishing, Fuji, Toit, FXR, Yamaha, Garmin, and perhaps his most endearing quality to me is that he is an absolute tackle junkie and gear junkie like me, which makes me feel better about myself. If you see the stack of gear in his garage, you wouldn't think I have such a problem. You would think it might be somewhat normal. So please welcome to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast, Mr. Beau Browning.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk some guruing. I guess.
Some crankbait rods, baby. Let's go. We're gonna get into it. But before that, I sort of know the answer because you're a unique specimen in that your father was also a professional fisherman, Stephen Browning, and went on to some renown as the winner of a outdoor-based reality show, which I could argue was in part because he was a good fisherman, right? That's like he fed everybody, and that's how he won the thing. But so I think I already know the answer to this question, but just because I asked everybody, like, how'd you get into fishing in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my father was the one that not pushed me into fishing, but that was the door that was open, And I obviously just loved fishing, was eating up with it, was in my blood from an early age, and then. I was also an avid golfer. Originally, I thought that was
really?
I thought that was a path I wanted to take.
I just got goosebumps, man. That felt like a bullet, a sniper's bullet just went by my head. Like, you know how close we came to lose. We've lost a lot of good men out there to golf.
Right.
So, and I'll tell you, I heard this from Scott Forrestal, who has been a generous mentor to me and very kind with his time. And he's an excellent businessman. And he says, he loves to say, every time you play golf, you're taking food off my kid's table. And so I feel the same way. And I think that's how we should feel as an industry. So I'm glad you faced the devil on each shoulder and made the good decision to go into fishing, not golf.
100%. Yeah, the fishing thing worked out a lot better, probably.
Well, we'll never know, but I'm glad you chose fishing. It worked out better for you being on this podcast, for sure.
For sure. But yeah, I got eaten up with it, and then kind of went down the golf route. And then when I was a senior in high school, I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to fish. I was golfing, thinking about fishing. Every time I was playing a tournament, I was thinking about fishing, So I was like, that's where my calling is.
That's where your heart is. Yeah. Well, I applaud you having the courage to go after it, because it's certainly not an easy path. So this is crazy. Like, you're the first person that I'm aware of in this situation. So you win 2 national titles at Montevallo while you're getting your major and your minor, but then you're also qualifying for the Elite Series, the Opens, while you're doing that. I thought I had a busy senior year, but it was pretty much tomfoolery compared to that. It was nothing serious or productive.
It was a long second semester. It was
I bet
a lot of trying to navigate, wrapping up your college years, getting your degree. Actually, a side note, funny was I had a professor that I was telling when I would go to these tournaments, I would just say I'm going to a fishing tournament, and they would probably think, college, immediately assume college. They wouldn't think twice about it. We'll see next week. Well, I was really going and fishing these Bassmaster Opens to try to qualify
for the elites. Yeah.
I go to the first one at Okeechobee. I tell my professor, I'm like, I'm going for a fishing tournament next week. It's like, that's fine. I'll catch you up when you get back. I get back the next week, and I top 10 that tournament. So I was on Bassmaster Live on TV on Fox Sports.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, And I come back in and she goes, "Hey, I need to see you after class if you don't mind." I was like, "That's fine." So stick around.
That was never a good thing for me. I would
No,
have been
never a
worried.
good thing. But I was like, she's got something I need to do that I missed while I was gone. She goes, "Were you at a college tournament last week?" I said, "No." Why? And she was like, "Well, I saw you on Fox Sports. My husband was watching you on Saturday, and we knew that's when I figured out you weren't going to college tournaments. You were going
Yeah.
to something else." So I got counted absent for that whole week. I didn't slip through that one. Let
Oh
that.
no. Well, you know what? I don't know. It's hard to judge somebody's actions until you walk a mile in their shoes. But I trade a top 10 in the
Hundred
opens
percent.
for a tardy or a absence for a week. You can make that up, man.
It was one of those things where by the end of it, and by the time of me missing a lot of classes and for tournaments, it was like, look, we're gonna have to sit down and talk about this. I have one. You're the only professor that's not in on
Helping
it.
me out. Yeah, yeah,
She came around and she was like, she kind of saw the dream and understood where I was
yeah.
coming from, and she passed me with like a barely passing grade and got me out of there.
She
And I was,
passed you.
I was
She
like, I need.
passed you. That's all that matters. You got the papers and everything. That's man, it's I get it, right? And it's evolved so fast. Like I've met some of the faculty down there affiliated with the Outdoor Scholars Program, and it's such an awesome program, and so many great anglers and outdoor kids have come through there. But it's interesting to me that I would not have known what it was. It didn't exist at my age, right? Like she's probably younger than me, but so she can be forgiven a little bit because my mom tells me all the time, she's like, thank goodness you couldn't bass fish in high school and college when you were there. Like you wouldn't have a degree from Vanderbilt. You would have not gone to college or you would have gone to college fishing somewhere. It's like, well, that's not the end of the world. That wasn't my path. It wasn't, meant to be, but it's pretty cool that the opportunity is out there now. And, so much is made of how well so many of you young anglers are doing, and I think it's so almost like sour grapes and so everyone's, oh, it's the technology, it's forward facing, it's all this kind of stuff, and it's like, man, no, stop and think about this for a second. And I had this conversation with Easton Fothergill, who's another of your teammates,
Right.
who's also on the elites, who happens to be our current reigning classic champion, right, which is an incredibly difficult feat to do. Everybody in that tournament is a lights out outstanding world class angler. Like I don't think people understand how hard it is to win that tournament. And everybody wants to sort of poo-poo it and say, "Oh, these young guys winning these tournaments." It's like, well, nobody was saying that when Jordan Lee came out of Auburn and won two of them in relatively short order. And the thing is, like when I remember the guys who were coming on to tour as young guys, the only guy I remember making it onto the Bassmaster circuit as a young guy was like a 19-year-old long-haired mullet-wearing Randy Blockett, right?
Right.
And right, which is great. Like he was a great fisherman and still is, and absolutely nothing bad to say about Randy. But like you talk about somebody like you or somebody like Easton who fished all these years, whose parents were tournament fishermen, who fished all these years in high school, then fished all these tournaments at a very, very competitive level. Like based on number of entries, I mean, you could kind of argue to win these college tournaments is
Right.
in some ways more difficult, based on having to fish with a partner and it's a shorter time. And it's like, there's so many entries. It's like
Right.
there's tons of skill involved, but it's not easy to win. It's not easy to win these college tournaments. Right. And so by the time one of you guys gets out and starts fishing opens and qualifying for the elites, you fished hundreds of tournaments, right? On the same lakes where you're trying to qualify and go, your mindset's different, your tackle prep is different, how well rounded you are from a skill set perspective is different. Like I hate that people are just choosing to focus on the technology and be like, well, they're better. It's technology and it's cheap. No, it's not. It's like these guys have fished more tournaments than you did
Right.
until you were 10 years on tour. You know what I mean? And so I wish people would, if they spent a day in the boat with one of you guys, they'd understand. Right.
Right. Right.
But it's just easy for the armchair quarterback sometimes, I think.
No doubt. No doubt. Time on the
Um,
water's going to win.
Yeah. Hey, and look, if everyone has access to the same technology and everybody has to play by the same rules, there's not cheating, right? So, like, calm down, Uncle Randy. It's going to be fine. Take a deep breath. But
Right.
anyway, all that aside, so thank you so much for joining me. You obviously, are better versed than almost anybody in how tough these tournaments are, and being on the Elite Series is certainly like the world class level from everybody from all over the globe. But that said, you've done well. Of course, you have the 2 first place finishes we've talked about. You've been in the top 10 6 times. You got 13 top 20 finishes, 19 top 30 finishes. So, to me, it's just a matter of time before you have your day and you're going to win one of these elites.
Right.
And so it's fun for me. I believe that, man. And you're a person of faith, and you do it the right way, and you work really hard. And I love that you're following your calling. But all that being said, if you had to predict the technique you would win your first tournament on, what would you guess?
It would either be cranking or chatterbait fishing. That
Well,
would be.
so I was wondering if you were going to say that. So that leads us right into this topic, right? So I don't know as many anglers as you know, and I don't spend as much time, despite I'm trying hard with a rod in my hands as you do, or at least not a bass rod in fresh water. Let's talk about the crankbait thing, right? Because this is another thing where I think the peanut gallery is sometimes dismissive. Like I vividly remember I grew up in Texas, and there were actually guys that would call crankbaits like idiot baits. And it's like, any idiot can fish that. All you got to do is throw it out and reel it in. It's like, well, might be a little more to it than that if you're doing it right, right? But when did you fall in love with crankbaits? Was this something you always loved from a young age, or is this something you developed as like a skill for power fishing in tournaments?
Kind of a little bit of both.
Okay,
Myself and my dad are arguably myself, my dad, and Brett Height.
right.
For those of you that know Brett Height, are arguably probably the 3 best chatterbait fishermen. And I'm not tooting my own horn, trying to
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
We're known as the best chatterbait guys on tour.
right.
You so square billing kind of falls into that, or crank
Almost the same. I was going to
falls
ask.
into
Yeah,
power fishing shallow water,
yeah,
and it's something that naturally kind of came. With that being said, the crankbait fishing here in Central Arkansas, especially this time of year till March or even April, and then in the early summer months, deep cranking, we do it a lot,
yeah,
especially this time of year. Those crawdad pattern crankbaits,
yeah,
shallow water, winding rock transitions, all the good stuff. We do it a ton here, and I don't know if
yeah,
people realize that. I might be preaching to the choir, but that is something that is very prominent in this part of the country, along with the chatterbait fishing, throwing a
yep,
lipless, the
yep,
whole 9 yards.
right.
It's just something that if you want to be good in Arkansas and if you want to be good at the top level, you got to be a crankbait fisherman. But especially here in Central Arkansas, you got to be a crankbait, comfortable throwing a crankbait.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some good Arkansas crankbait and jerkbait fishermen. Yeah, I mean, so just because everybody's coming from a slightly different place. Like when you get out on the water, how do you know when to pick up the crankbait? Is this a thing where you're going to start always picking up a crankbait or a chatterbait, or are there things you're looking for that tell you, hey, any day on any lake could be different, but I expect. When you're going into practice or you're doing whatever, when are you kind of getting the green lights like, the crankbait's going to be in play?
There's like a chatterbait being that's one of my things. It's always on the front deck. A
Yep.
crankbait is one of those things that is almost always on the front deck for
Yeah.
me. It's
Yeah.
right. It's always in the rod box, ready to go.
Right.
2 or 3 of them. It's just one of those things. But I'm looking more for. I say something to click, and that sounds. People are like, "What do you mean something to click? What's the click?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking for that scenario on the
Mm-hmm.
wall.
Right.
And oftentimes it might be a deal where I'm throwing a chatterbait in a tournament practice, and I go, "Man, they probably need a crankbait better down through here. Let me try it." And I got one right here sitting beside me. So,
Right.
it's things like that here around the house. We know when it goes down. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking outside; it's drizzling rain and nasty outside.
Here too. Yeah.
I'm looking at a rock bank across the lake that I know I can go wind a crankbait. And it's just that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a crankbait is going to catch fish all over the country year round. I mean, really and truly, it's not something that's a seasonal. It's not something that is a time and place. It's genuinely a year-round fish catcher, just like a chatterbait. Things like that. It's something you always want to be able to throw. Something you want in your inventory. It's something that you can go way down the rabbit holes with and really dive into all. And we will today on this
Yeah.
talk. But
For sure.
it's something that, like you said earlier, the Texas guys talking about a dummy bait,
Right.
something you just throw out there and reel in. It is so far from that. The
Right.
same with the chatterbait, same with
Yeah.
the crankbait,
Yeah.
jerkbait, doesn't matter. It is so far from that. It's a very technical technique, if that makes sense.
It is.
There's a lot of physics that lay behind it that we'll get into that change the way you think about a crankbait and change how many fish you catch on a crankbait.
Right. So you're out on the water and you're sort of seeing fish. Maybe you're throwing a chatterbait first and you're saying, okay, I feel like I should be getting more bites through this area. I mean, there's so many variables of things. You know, there's square bills, there's wood-bodied baits, there's plastic-bodied baits, there's silent baits, there's baits with rattles and different sounds, right? Um, is there a way you kind of? So what I'm guilty of most of the time is I'm like I pick up the last thing they've ate well when I was on that body of water or had that water clarity or that time of the year, right? And that's where I start. And then I'm looking for those details like short striking it or falling it, not eating it, or all small fish, not any big fish, or whatever it is. It's like, okay, I don't quite have it right. Start tweaking variables. Like, how do you sort of start?
You kind of have to fill out a lot of, does a bite seem finicky or does it seem aggressive? It's a reaction bait.
Mm-hmm.
It also can be fish finessey in the sense that, you know, I got two examples right here on two totally different ends of the spectrum that we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a 1.0 and that's a 10XD.
Right.
Then you got your middleman like a 2.5 square bill.
Right.
You kind of have to feel it out. And like you said, there's flat side balsa crankbaits for those days where they're barely wanting to eat anything. It's freezing cold. You got a little flat side, and then you got the days where they're grouped up in a school on a ledge, and you take that big 10XD and rip it through the middle of them as fast as you can, try to get the school to ignite.
Right. Right.
But it's more situation. A lot of what we do around here is square billing.
Yeah.
Because of target casting, we're throwing at stumps and lay down around rock transitions. We know there's a fish in a small area and we're trying to figure out how to make them bite. And there's a lot of playing around that comes into that. And, like I could list off, I could go out here and I would know the crankbait to throw right now.
Right.
But for somebody somewhere else in the country, it could be a different crankbait. That kind of comes down to, paying attention to your surroundings, listening at the tackle shops, things like that.
Yeah. Well, and depth, right? So you mentioned a couple of really important things, right? So one is, are you fishing around cover or are you not, right? So if I hear you right, you're going towards the square bill and that kind of thing that does better through that cover. If they're there, if it's more open water, that's going to make you think about another thing, and obviously depth, right? So I've got so many questions already. This is good. So you mentioned you trying to ascertain, kind of discern whether that bite is finicky or not. So like, one of the ways that I would normally do that is like, am I just barely skinning them and getting them on one hook, or are they choking it, right? I mean, is that the kind of stuff you're talking about? Are you reading the way the fish hit the bait and the way they're hooked, or tell me more about that?
Yeah, so if you're throwing, like, for instance, a 2.5 square bill, you're throwing it around stumps, you're winding, you're bouncing off of them, and they're just barely eating it. They're getting that back hook, skin hook. They're not really eating it good. That's when you start going, okay, do I need to go to a silent flat side like a balsa? Do I need to go to a little 1.0 size, something real small? What do I need to adjust color wise? There's if they're not eating it good, that's a lot of that has to do with a wrong color, a wrong size. There's a better bait to be throwing. Now there are times major cold fronts hit, and those fish just get finicky. You're just worried about how to get them to bite, and then figuring out how to in the boat's a whole different story,
Right.
But a lot of times, especially if you have stable conditions and nothing crazy happening, there's a color that's going to be better. You're going to be able to piece it together, and that a lot of that comes down to having a big inventory of crankbaits. I mean, I know I carry a lot of different crankbaits with me in the boat, so you kind of want to have a wide inventory of what you can throw at them.
Yeah. Well, and not all of us, some of us, if we only fish a home lake, you can dial that in a little bit, right? Part of it is you're fishing every lake all over the country year round. You got to have everything because everything might be in play, right? But one of the things that's interesting to me about crankbaits is color, right? And we'll talk about all this stuff in different bill shapes and different wide or tight wobbles. There's so much, right? But and terminal and hooks and all, and we'll get through this. But like for the colors, it's so interesting to me because I struggle to think of other baits where, in the freshwater at least, where some days, and we have access to the most realistic finishes we've ever had on some of these baits. And then some days they want something that doesn't look anything like anything in the natural world ever, right? Like, and they can both work, right? And it's so interesting, like, For you, is that a water clarity thing only? Is that a forage thing only? Like, when are you deciding, no, well, I'm going to have to get a reaction bite, so I'm going to go with something wild and crazy versus I really feel like they're on crawfish right now, so I'm going to dig on this ledge with this crawfish colored bait, or they're clearly spitting up shad, so I'm going to try to match the shad color. Like, how do you think about, because they obviously all work, or I mean, I've caught them on everything, like I said, from something looks like a UFO to,
Mhm.
like, I'm big on purple right now. I don't know what it is about purple bait. Like, I keep trying different baits for different fish in purple, and purple, like the old purple worm, right? Like, that's so old. It seems to work for everything, man. Like, purple chatterbaits is kind of like a, I won't say which fishery where, but black and blue and purple chatterbaits are like all of a sudden whacking a non-bass species of fish, and everyone's like, "What are you throwing that color at them for?" It's like, well, because it's working, right?
Right.
So how do you figure out? Is it just trial and error? Or how are you figuring out natural versus unnatural or loud or visible or whatever the variables are there?
A little bit of trial and error, a lot of paying attention to what's going on around you. You know, if they're pushing bait, obviously feeding on bait, spitting up bait fish, you know, then you're going to see your shads. I will say this: cold weather months, for me, I'm typically going to go crawl, natural crawl, or like even like a red fire tiger. They
Hmm.
like a red or a crawfish in the winter, especially on like rocky lakes, highland reservoirs,
Yeah.
things like that. Red seems to be a staple in the cold months to pre-spawn. Um, but you know, and then paying attention if they're eating bluegill, if they're it's a lot of. Rick Clunn said this best one time. In order to be a great outdoorsman, a fisherman, hunter, whatever, you have to pay attention to every little piece of the puzzle
Yeah.
surrounding it.
Well, he
And
was
that is,
certainly one of the best, right? Yeah.
you got to be in tune with what's going on in nature, you know.
Yeah.
So paying attention to those, you know, they're pushing bait on the bank, they're spitting up the bait. That's a big part of it, as well as knowing the forage that's in the body of water you're fishing. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, pay attention to the forage, and that's the best start I can tell anybody.
Yeah.
It, if you're going to start trying crankbaiting on your lake, and your lake is Lake X
Mhm.
in Indiana. I mean, wherever it is, figure out what the forage is. That's the
Yeah.
first thing, and then start there, and
Right.
then start piecing things together. And I'm gonna try a red fire tiger crankbait. It's winter, now it's February. I'm gonna try this. I heard that should work, and then you start piecing all this stuff together,
Hmm.
and over time, then you find yourself walking out a tackle store and you go, man, that OSP Blitz crankbait and that red color right there, that would probably work. I'm gonna get one of those and try it. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm like crazy. Then
Right.
you start
Right.
piecing stuff together and it
Yeah.
starts to fall. But if you were starting on a basic level for somebody, just pay attention to the forage at hand.
Yeah.
And in those colder months, lean towards those crawfish if it's a forage, which it is just about everywhere in the country.
Yeah.
Lean towards those crawfish in the winter, early spring, a reddish type crankbait. And then the rest of the year you can normally base it on shad or bait fish.
Yeah.
But just pay attention to the forage at hand. Learn that first, and then base your color picking around that and
I
size.
I think crawfish throws people as a bait, and like you look at all these studies, like I read a bunch of stuff they do at Southern Pond Management from Auburn, right? And you've got fisheries management stuff at Montevallo too, but like it's such an important forage fish, right? Or forage source for bass, and so high in protein and so important, in certain months especially. But like you don't see them like you do. Like I go on any lake, I see some bluegill. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
see some kind of minnow or shad or some kind of bait fish, right? So it's like, oh, well, I'll start there. And you often don't see the crawfish, right?
Right.
And so it's easy to forget about them and try them. And it took me a long time to get those bright colors. We were talking earlier about Washita near you. It's Clearwater Lake, right? And it's like, well, that doesn't seem like a natural color in this clear water. I've never seen a crawfish that red. Well, but if they want the bait, then
Right.
they'll tell
They're
you, right? It does.
bright color.
Absolutely. So, in terms of, so we talked a little bit about the color. We talked about starting around cover versus not. Um, Talk to me about depth, right? Because this is one we have better electronics than we've ever had. A lot of times we are targeting, not always, but a lot of times we're targeting fish that we know are there, right? Whether we're inside scan going on a ledge or whatever the scenario is. Um, is this a thing where you want to come right through them at their depth? Is this something where you want to come above them? Do you work through that? Like, how do you think about? Because there's so many. I remember when it was like shallow and deep. Those are the two kind of crankbaits you could
Right.
buy, or like a lipless that sunk. That was it, right? And you just had to find a way. Now we've got all these baits, and they're really good, right? Like if you use the recommended line and all that kind of stuff, like they will run at the depth they are advertised to run, right? How do you think about depth, and which are you trying to be right on them? You trying to be deeper than them? You trying to be above them?
I'm normally cranking. I'm trying to keep bottom contact. Most of the time, bottom contact
Okay.
at that depth range I think they're in. So if they're
Okay.
in 5 foot on rock banks here at home, I'm going to throw a 5 foot diving red
Okay.
crankbait now. And then the only time that I don't think about that is grass fishing.
Yeah.
Grass fishing is different because now you're reading how high that grass is. It might be
Yeah.
8 foot deep, but the grass comes up to 4, and I'm throwing, a square bill right over top of it. A lot of times you throw like a lipless in that situation, but a square bill is something, especially like a flat sided square bill, is a really good way to get those bites. Get it in the top of that grass and rip it out, things like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I like it more when it's going on than throwing a lipless because it's so much easier to be in tune with that bait and how deep how deep it runs. You kind of can hold your rod tip up and really keep it up a little bit.
Yep.
Compared to a lipless, it's going to try to run down, and
Right.
you're fighting it up. That flotation of that crankbait and that max depth ability keeps it from having to fight near as much.
Yeah. You can stay in this bite, the strike zone more often. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fight it less. You mentioned earlier throwing like the 10XD through a deep school to fire them up, right? Like, is that bouncing on the bottom too, or not necessarily?
Normally, you're wanting it to dig into the
Okay.
bottom and really rip a trench through there and
Yeah.
get their attention. I mean, that's kind of the burn it down there and reel it as fast as you can, just beating the crap out of everything it runs into. It's
Yeah.
a pure reaction strike.
Yeah. I had never seen that kind of concept of activating a school until Alabama rigs came out. And I was
Right.
fishing on Lay Lake with a guy, and he pulled up on a point. He said, okay, there's spotted bass all over this point, but they won't hit anything. So we're going to throw the A rig through there a few times. It's going to fire them up. And then we're going to throw a lipless in there, and we're going to catch them. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that, man. I mean, it happened about 3 different points. And this is a post cold front. It was a tough day, but it was like something about that disruptive big. And we even caught a couple on the A rig. And then you could throw a lipless through there or a deep diver through there, get nothing, fire them up with the A rig, and then throw in there, and you get 2 or 3 bites. Then you have to throw the A rig again, you get 2 or 3 bites, and eventually it would stop and you go to the next point. But that was fascinating. So, we don't often think of using the artificial lure as like a trigger, you know what I mean, to like get them riled up, but it can, right? And we do that with saltwater fish. I don't know why it's curious to me about, bass, but it certainly works, right? How do you, because we've talked about some different techniques like square bill around the structure. Now we're talking about, either a lipless or a square bill over the grass or ripping through the grass. Talk to me a little bit about line. How are you thinking about line? Mono, fluoro, braid to leader, depends on the situation. Like, talk me through the way you've kind of developed your line system for this since you're a specialist.
Right. I throw fluorocarbon on
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
I throw different sizes for different situations, and that's just my opinion. Most people's seems to be where they fall is fluorocarbon. There's a small percentage of guys that like monofilament because it has some extra stretch. Most people throw fluorocarbon, and we're throwing every one of these crankbaits on a casting rod. Exclude like a shad wrap. That's about the only thing that you really hear, like a Rapala SR5. Like that's just a different deal.
Just because it's so light, and
It's so light, it's hard to throw. You almost have to fit like a spy bait rod, like something really soft. You're trying to. It's the biggest thing with a shad wrap is just getting it out there. So you normally have
they'll plane off on you too.
They'll do everything in the air straight sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Gret's a fish catcher too. But all this other stuff like a 1.0, I'm gonna throw in 12-pound fluorocarbon most of the time. Real soft rod. Rods have a huge play in this.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. I'm just pleasure delaying. I'm just teasing all the rest of it, right?
Then,
so when you're throwing 12, are you controlling depth with the 12? Is there a time where you would, if you wanted to run shallower, you'd go heavier with a 14 or 16, or wanted to run deeper, it'd be a 10? Or are you just going to change baits at that point and kind of keep the 12 as your constant?
12 is like my 1.0, 1.5, not reeling it around any cover. Now, I will say on a 1.0, if you go getting in 14, 16 pound, it's going to make the bait not work right.
Right.
You're going to have to be finessey with that small square bill. Then you get like in your 2.5s, like your traditional size square bills, this is where I really start to play with line as far as what I'm fishing around. If I'm just going down the bank, not reeling it through anything, just fishing down the rocks, I'm gonna throw 14. And that's just it's heavy enough to where I don't ever have to worry about it breaking, light enough to where it's gonna let the bait do what it needs to do. And then we go into, like, if I'm fishing around big stumps, crashing the square bill through big stumps, lay downs, I'm going to 16, sometimes even 20. And that sounds crazy. We'll explain why that works when we get to rods, but that bigger diameter line is going to allow that bait to crawl through that wood better, is what it's going to do. You're not going to have near as much stretch. If you threw a lay down with a 2.5 on 12-pound line, it's going to hit the first stick and probably hang up, just because it has too much give. Yeah. Now, I learned that from Greg Hackney and my dad years ago, and it changed everything about how square build heavy cover. But that heavier diameter line, a little bit less stretch, it's going to pull that bait through there at a lot more efficient pace. You're still going to get hung up like anything, but you're going to get hung up far less with that heavier poundage line. And then you look at something like a 10XD, 8XD, something huge. You're normally fishing that in open water. You're just hitting the bottom with it. 12, 14-pound line normally is what I tend to lean towards. You're not having to worry about really ripping it through anything, you know.
Yeah. How are you thinking about gear ratios? What do you run all the same? You like different ones? Depends.
So typically, I'm throwing a 6.3 to 1 on just about everything, and that's I couldn't tell you the exact amount of line that pulls in per turn, but I throw Daiwa a lot of times. So
me too.
So I mean, I know a 6.3 Daiwa is my go-to. I have a couple of the 5 to 1. Oh, what do they call it? Crazy crankers, Steezes. I use those for like the 10XDs.
Yeah, the big heavy stuff. Yeah,
and that's all that 5 to 1 comes down to, is you're getting far more torque when you reel. And what that allows you to do is you don't wear yourself out near as much. Because for those people who don't know, the higher gear ratio goes, the less torque you have. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. If I'm trying to pull that big old heavy plug through there, I want that reel working with me. I'm gonna reel real fast on that 5, but that reel is going to take a lot of that torque and keep it from wearing that elbow and shoulder out, you know, as you go through the day, and wrist.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk rods.
Yes.
All right, and there's no level of detail too much for the appetite of this audience when it comes to cranking rods. So many variables: length, action, power. Like, I know you're a mad scientist with this stuff, and you've tried everything, and you're willing to experiment. I think that's a really important point. Like, I have young kids come up to me and be like, "I want to fish in high school, I want to fish in college," and one of the things I observe about you guys, and I happen to have been fortunate to be close to a bunch of guys who fished at Montevallo, you know, you and Easton and Jack Barron and DK and stuff. Y'all are not afraid to try something and experiment, right? And if you hear something working for somebody else, you don't poo-poo it. You say, "Oh, I'm gonna go try it. I'll see." And I think that's part of why you guys learn and get so versatile and well-rounded so quickly. But you obviously have a ton of first-person experience on the water, hand on the rod and reel, cranking. Talk to me about how you think about rods.
I mean, let's break it down initially to a very basic science. This is 1 second. I got it.
That sounds like a dog.
It's a dog.
Dogs are welcome on this podcast. What's his or her name?
Gus. He's a golden retriever, 1.5 years, and
Gus
is a goofball. So
is Gus going to get any duck work in Arkansas this year?
No, he's a couch potato.
Oh, boo!
He's a couch potato. So breaking down crankbait rods on just a very basic understanding of what you're looking for. So a crankbait rod, in my opinion, needs just a few things. And what it needs is load. Load being for throwing that bait a long ways. I mean, a parabolic like a moderate rod, really load up, throw that bait a long ways. That also comes into fighting the fish. You know, a fish, you hook one, he comes up and jumps. That rod's going to be loaded into it, keeping that pressure when he's jumping and head shaking, doing crazy stuff. That load is going to keep your pressure. The next thing is and I'm trying to figure out how to keep this basic for now. And then
no, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't have to be that basic.
But you're wanting that load for casting, for fighting, as well as, and this is a very important one, when you're reeling that crankbait through the water and it's swimming through there super fast, that bass comes up to eat it. When he comes up behind it, he's going to open his mouth and suck that water in. That's how they eat.
Yep.
Open that mouth and suck that water in and suck that crankbait in with it.
Yep.
You have to have that load in that rod, but when you're reeling and he comes up behind it, suck it in, that rod's got to give enough to where that crankbait
can
inhale. Because if you're throwing a pool cue and he comes up and tries to suck it in, that bait's not going back in it, you know. So they're not going to follow through a lot of times. They're just going to swim up there, and so that's where that soft, rod comes into play. And that's the three biggest things that you want in a crankbait rod is give, and give.
Yeah.
You want give for three reasons, but that's what you want. And which we'll talk about when you go to throw in the big 10 XDs. That's going to be totally different than anything. Right now I'm talking about square bills, flat sides, your regular deep diving crankbaits, your 5XDs, your Jackal Diggles, things like that. So when we get to talking about 10XDs, it's going to be a totally different conversation.
No, we'll put a pin in that and we'll come back to it. Yeah.
Right.
But so we're talking about the give, and give, obviously like a more moderate action, right? With some ability to load so you can cast, and also soft enough that it'll work the bait well and that you don't take it away from fish, right? When they're trying to eat it. We have a lot of choices these days. You've got straight glass, you've got straight carbon, you've got hybrids or composites. Like, do you have a preference, or are you reaching for a different thing for these? Again, putting aside the 10 XD and like the really extreme deep cranking, or have you developed a preference?
I have never been a glass fan.
Yeah,
that's just the honest truth. I've never been a glass fan.
Okay.
You normally get heavier rods.
Yeah, you do.
I'm all about lightness in a rod.
Yep.
I like more of just a graphite or a mix.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get as light as I can with a rod in general. Yep. So I've leaned away from glass. Now, some of the glass rods are the best cranking rods out there. And I've only ever felt one that I really, really love.
Yeah.
Now, I can say it on here, but it's an alpha angler.
Yeah.
It was a number one. That's the only glass rod I've ever picked up where I liked.
Yeah. Well, and there's all kinds of glass. Like everyone's very familiar with that. Like there's like low modulus, intermediate modulus, and high modulus carbon fiber, and graphite. Well, it's the same thing's true of fiberglass, right? And there's cheap, heavy, spongy, slow glass, and there's actually glass that if I didn't tell you it was glass and I painted it and you couldn't see it, you'd be surprised if it was,
right.
So obviously it matters how much the blank designer understands about what they're trying to do matters. I think a lot of people go to glass just because it's the only slow action or moderate action rod, right? And the reality is, if you know what you're doing, you can build a great rod out of carbon fiber, as you mentioned, that's lighter and more responsive, wears you out less all day, and it helps you feel more, whether you're ticking grass, what kind of bottom you're going through, sand, gravel, rock, whatever it is. As long as it's got the right action, it's no disadvantage to be fishing carbon, right? Just like there's no advantage to be fishing glass if you're getting the right action you need to do the things you're talking about, which is throw the bait, work the bait, hook the fish, and land them, right?
And I feel like glass has become kind of, back in the day, I remember glass rods used to be very popular. And the reason they were popular is because people said they were popular.
Right. Well, there's a long time there wasn't a lot of option, right? Or you get one person who like, I remember, I want to say, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. It's just my memory, but like, I think David Fritz was throwing fiberglass for a while. Well, that'll sell a lot of rods for people who are like, well, I want to catch fish on crankbait like him. I must need a fiberglass rod, and that's okay, right? And I know people who prefer fiberglass fly rods, crankbait rods. Okay, that's fine. Fish what you want, but
nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, we're not asking their opinion. We're asking Beau Browning's opinion.
In my opinion, I like a graphite. I steer away from glass,
right?
Except for that one that I mentioned earlier. Like it's hard. I would much rather have a really light rod that I'm way more in tune with than a glass, and that's totally my opinion. My dad throws glass rods, crank.
Yep.
I mean, he loves it. Yep. So it's a lot of personal preference, but I'm leaning leaning more away from glass.
Okay.
When I'm looking for that, and then a lot of it that plays into that is length, and one of the most unthought about things is handle length.
Yeah, I would think you're leading me right where I want to go. So, and these are two different things. And one of the things I love about custom rods is, and I tell people this all the time, the average rod is made for the average angler. And insofar as you are not dead average, which is like 5'10", 185 with arms this length and hands this size and everything else, I'm not saying they're wrong, but any one particular person or particular technique or personal preference, moving that seat up or back an inch can make all the difference in the world. It can change casting distance. It can change, hookup ratio. It can change fatigue through the day. It can change balance, tip up or tip down. Like it is totally underutilized and overlooked most of the time because we're all used to just getting what we get. And I've called this out because so much of our audience is custom rod builders. This is one of the beautiful things about custom. You can make it however you want. Go break all the rules if you want to. Um, do you find that you typically like a shorter or longer grip than is standard? And how long of rods are you like? Where do you start and where do you?
I like a 6'10", 7-footer for
Okay.
square bill and small crankbaits, things like that. That is excluding deep diving crankbaits. Square bill, flat sides, that I like a 7-footer. Deep cranking, I like a 7.5 to even, and I'm not going into this yet, where it's going to be a totally different.
Right.
But I like a 7.5-ish range rod. Take your pick. They're all pretty close as far as that goes.
So talk me through that because you didn't arrive at that by accident. Start with the square bill and the short one, the 6'10" to 7 feet versus the bigger baits, deeper cranking, going 7.6 or longer. Like, how did you develop that over time? What lessons did you learn, or what made you settle on that?
So the first crankbait rod I ever owned, dedicated crankbait rod, it was a St. Croix Mojo glass. It was a purple rod they used to make.
I think they still do.
Yeah, and it was a glass cranking rod, but at the time that was about all I had. And my dad was with St. Croix; he gave it to me. That's why I ended up with that. And it was a 6'10" medium moderate glass rod, 6'10". I fell in love with that rod for the sole fact that when I was target casting, I could roll my wrist accurately, just throw it right where I wanted it. All that. That's where that 6'10" to 7 foot comes, is target casting specifically. As time went on, like we talked about, ended up leaning away towards glass rods, but that short rod still stays the same. And short handle is a big part of that too, because you got to think, if you're roll casting and you're whipping that crankbait around, throwing it on the side of that dock, throwing it by that stump, you don't want a big long handle that's going to be hitting you in the side when you go to roll cast or something. So you kind of have to think about, that's where that shorter handle comes into play on those square bill rods, flat sided crankbaits.
Well, and this is this is going to sound crazy, but I want everybody to hear me. I'll even add my own 2 cents onto this. If we went out in the yard or in the front of your boat and we threw some crankbaits on 2 different 6'10" rods, and one of them was very fast or very stiff, and the other one was this very moderate action you're talking about, effectively what happens is more of the rod loads on that moderate action rod, and so it casts like a shorter rod. It is effectively a shorter lever because it's bent more, if that makes sense, whereas that 6'10" staying a lot straighter and being stiffer. And so it's a very important point, right? Like, the action can affect the accuracy. And for rod builders who are listening out there, this is a general rule of thumb, and there's exceptions to any rule. But as you go shorter, your accuracy generally increases, and your casting distance and hook setting leverage and everything generally decreases, right? So it's a trade-off, right? So 6'10", and some people are going, wow, I would have thought he would have said shorter. I would have thought he'd say 6'6" or 6 feet. But if you're talking about a moderate action blank and it's 6'10", and 1.5 feet of that rod is loading even on a little, wrist roll cast, you're effectively casting with a shorter lever, if that makes sense, and you can be very, very accurate. Then, of course, one of the things you learn immediately being in the boat with one of you guys is these guys are world class, right? And they're generally, to a man and woman, incredibly accurate casters through skill and a ton of practice, 10,000 hours if nothing else, right? But so yeah, that's interesting. That makes sense to me for the moderate action rod, and a slightly shorter handle for the kind of accurate rolling casts. And of course, you're going through there and picking pockets. You're not
Mhm.
that crankbait's very likely not in play all the way from the structure to the boat, necessarily. You're really picking those specific spots as you go through, so you'll be able to get it out there, get it back, get it out there, get it back, and do so accurately every time matters, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then, it changes when you go into like your traditional deep crankbaits, like I said, not the 10XD stuff, but like the traditional deep crankbaits. I was talking about, you go into that 7.5 foot length
Mm-hmm.
rod, you lengthen that handle up a little bit. And when I say short handle, I took a measurement off one earlier before we got on here.
Okay.
Square bill rod, I'm talking like a 10, 11, 12 inch from butt to trigger.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
That's what I'm measuring as a handle. I'm talking about 10,
Yep.
11, 12 inch.
Yep.
Deep cranking rods, when we start getting into these 7.5 footers, then I want like a 14-ish, really
Mm-hmm.
13, 14. And it's just barely longer than the other ones, but you notice it when you're casting.
Oh,
And when
yeah.
you go to
Yeah.
grab that butt end and rear into it, you're right here it feels like you're this for 12 or 10, 11, 12. But when you go to 13, it feels like you got a whole
Yep.
different leverage behind
And
you.
mechanically, you do. Biomechanically, you do. You're bringing a
Right.
lot more into that when you can use both hands and all your muscle groups. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So like a 13, 14 on a cranking rod is what the
Yep.
numbers that I would put if you really want to get technical on lengths, handle lengths. That's the numbers I would go towards. There's some I've picked up cranking rods that have incredible handles on them. I mean, like super long ones.
Yep.
That's great for certain things, like the 10XD, like those
Right.
giant crankbaits, because then you're tucking it in your armpit and you are just piling into that reel
You
to
need that handle for a different thing in that
different
application, for
purpose.
survival, right? So you don't
Exactly.
get pulled out of the boat.
Exactly. So there's lots that plays into it, but that's some links that I lean towards more for traditional fishing, and
Yeah.
put numbers to words, I guess, to
Yeah.
help it. Because I'm sure somebody's gonna be watching and going, I want to know the exact
No,
number.
they are, and I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask you, and then you offered it proactively. So 10-inch, 11-inch, 12-inch on the square bill, kind of 6, 10 to 7 foot rod, and that's from the terminal butt to the trigger. And then when you start going to these 7.6 rods, more in the 13 to 14-inch range from the terminal butt to the trigger. Do you have a preference on the butt? You like just a regular? You like a mushroom butt cap? You like a regular old butt
I
cap? You like a piece of EVA or cork? Like, what do you?
I love EVA handles.
Okay.
That's something that I love a cork handle too.
Yeah.
High end cork. Now I've picked up some
Right.
cheap stuff before that I
Mm,
not like, but I mean, a lot of companies nowadays, like a Loomis or a
mm-hmm.
Dobbins. I don't know exactly the cork they use, but they make great. They have great
Yeah.
cork,
Yeah.
and that does so much for a rod that people don't
Yeah.
realize.
They're
And
paying a lot for it. The
whether I'm
quality has continued to go down and the cost has continued to go up.
right,
If you get a rod like that, you get you a Loomis that's got or Dobbins that's got a good cork grip on it, it's because they love you and they care about anglers. It's not
and
because it's easy or cheap.
exactly, and that's something that whether you're buying or building,
Yeah.
take my word for it. You want cork, go high on
Yeah.
it.
No, it's the truth.
You will thank me later.
Well,
Uh,
only do it if you want it to last more than about 2 years. If
exactly.
you don't
It's
care
like
about that, then
I was about to say, I've got cork rods that I've played around with lower end rod cork and they fall apart. I've
fast. Yeah.
have high end ones that are older than me. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like I can't even remember when I got them, and that
Yeah.
cork looks brand new. But I do like EVA
Yeah.
a lot, and I have it on a lot of rods because it's just such a unique feel. Like if
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
thrown
Yeah.
a lot of rods and then you pick up an EVA like for the first time,
Hmm.
it's so neat, and it feels good in the hand.
Yeah.
When your hands get wet, it feels good. You still feel
Yeah.
like you got good traction.
Yeah.
Wind grip is like a wind grip style is another one. Do y'all do like the kind of
Well, they were big for a while, and then they sort of were waffling around about they originally in the golf business, and then their quality went way downhill, and I don't even know if they're making grips anymore. Fuji had some dedicated grips made to fit Fuji seats by them, and we had to discontinue them because the quality wasn't sustaining where we needed it to be. But the good ones back in the day when they were making them like they make the golf club grips were very comfortable,
right,
and had a really good grip texture to them. And they offered you a lot of colors, which again, whether that's an important aspect or not, within custom rod building it is. You get someone who
right,
wants a yellow grip. Well, I only have so many choices, right? So it was
right.
nice to have a yellow or a red or whatever wind grip available. It's a shame that their quality sort of went downhill. But And do you like, so this is another thing that's interesting. You see, I feel like a lot of crankbait anglers have a very set opinion, and it's not right or wrong. It's like we already talked about preference and what your dad likes. Y'all are both excellent crankbait fishermen, but you might like something different. He likes glass, you like carbon. How are you? Do you have a preference about a one-piece handle versus split grips on cranking rods?
Full handle or split grip? You mean like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
man? It's a preference. I'll
I
do.
agree. It's a preference. Yeah,
It's a very big preference. I love a full handle
yeah,
in general. I'm not
yeah.
saying it. I've
A
got
lot of crankbait guys do.
and it's weird because, like I said, I've got every kind of rod out there in the shop. 90% of them are split,
Right,
but
right.
it's just kind of the norm.
Yeah,
But I have got some full handles that are my favorite rods in the
yep,
in the corner because I love that full handle feel.
yeah,
I mean, I know that plays a lot too with balance of the rod, and I'm always a butt heavy rod.
yep.
That what when you're building a rod, I know you know this, but I'll say it for the people listening. When you build a rod and it's tip heavy, you've lost almost half your sensitivity, and that's something that people have to understand because I have picked up custom made rods, and you pick them up and it's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah.
this rod's not going to be as sensitive as it should be.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. But anyways, back to the full handle or split handle preference. I love both. I really like the feel of a full handle. They're
It's another great reason for custom, right? You can have it however you want.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Play
Yeah.
around with it if
Yeah.
you
Try them both. That's
try
right.
them both if you can. If not, go to a store and pick up some. Go to a Bass Pro Shops and walk down the aisle and just feel them and see what you
Hmm.
think and go from there. But it's going to be different for everybody. But I will say on that topic, those guys that are diehard cork, try the EVA. Those guys that are diehard EVA, try the cork. That's a
Yeah.
whole
Seriously. Everybody's got something to learn, right?
yeah. There's
Seriously.
there's
Yeah.
something to learn there, but the EVA full cork or full EVA would be a really cool build in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, I know some guys who could build you one like that. So, you just got to tell us when the time is right. I will officially make it Jack Barron's job until he finishes it. He's not allowed to do any marketing or communication stuff until he finishes a rod for you. If we
He
say
built me
so.
two customs not too long ago.
I know, and he made videos of them, and they've done really really well, man. So
Very,
hey,
very
any of that stuff you need, you just got to call us. We're happy to do it. We love the notion of that stuff being out on tour and helping somebody
it's
bring
good.
home the bacon, man.
Yes,
So
sir.
a little while back, we put a pin in, and we've referenced it several times. But let's go back to, and assuming I think a lot of people are tracking right with us. Most bass anglers are picking up what you're laying down and know
Right.
everything we're talking about. But really, the Strike King 10XD was one of the really first, very different baits. It is a huge bait with a huge lip, and it reaches huge depths. And it was like either beautiful or a monstrosity when it first came out, right? Depending
Right.
on, and I remember thinking, man, I would not want to have to pull on one of those all day. But if that's where the fish are and that's what they want and that's what you got to do to catch them, thank goodness you have that. And you mentioned the 8XD, which is a slightly smaller, slightly shallower running version. And since this bait has come out and been so successful and really wildly successful on tour, frankly, there's other iterations, and so now we have a lot of these. Like I know the DRT Politz Eye is one Jack's always got me looking for when I'm in Japan. um, all these random obscure baits the Japanese have never even heard of, and I'm supposed to find them when I'm over there for 10 days. But so these really, it is a different animal. It almost looks more like a musky bait or a saltwater bait or something. It's a big old bait. They dive deep. So you've referenced that this is a totally different animal several times. Let's talk about that one a little bit. So
So
you did mention that you still stay with like some 12 or 14 pound fluoro.
right,
And you
right.
did mention that you'll drop to a lower gear ratio for those great big baits. But you
Yeah.
also mentioned a longer handle and what about rod length and all that? Like talk me through, obviously that's a different deal, but talk to me about the specialized gear that you're picking up when you're dialing into that particular, when you have no choice but to dial into that
Right.
particular. It's like, y'all, if y'all have never thrown one, it's like towing a water skier with your rod and reel all day.
It is. Yeah, that's exactly what it's
You know what I
like.
mean?
I know
It's like
exactly.
it's like towing someone on a tube all day, cranking this thing.
So first, let's dive into this, and this will explain a lot about what we're talking about. And I meant to touch on this earlier, and then it's going to lead right into the 10XD deal.
Okay.
So here's the biggest thing that people have to wrap their head around when it comes to crankbait fishing is these treble hooks. You know, this is the 1.0, and it might be hard to see. I'll throw my hand up behind it. The one,
well, and not everybody's watching. Like a lot of people be listening, but we're looking at a little 1.0 square bill with a relatively small treble hook on it,
like a size 6, a size 4, 5 ish treble hook on a regular size square bill. Imagine this: the next time you're looking at the treble hooks on your crankbait, you know, whether it's a 2.5, 1.0, 3.5 size, whatever it might be. Imagine this: you look at your square or your treble hook. It's 3 hooks, and people tend to forget this. But if you held it up and you covered the 2 of the 3, so you just have 1.
It's not a very big hook.
It's a tiny hook.
Yeah,
they all are. Even on a number 4, number 5. This is a number 6, but a number 4, like you're not throwing a big hook, and they're not stout. I mean, you can flex these things with your hands. So you just really have to think about it's way more finessey than you think it is.
Yeah.
And that's where that softer rod comes into play. A lot of this is accounting for the small hooks.
Help you get hooked up, stay hooked up. Yeah.
It might look like a big hook. It's got 3 of them, but if you just imagine that being one of those,
yeah, it's not big.
No, it's a drop shot hook almost. So
yeah,
you kind of have to think finessey and understand that's where a lot of that rod comes into account for that. The biggest mistake you see crankbait fishing with guys is they throw too heavy of a rod.
Yeah,
it doesn't allow those hooks to do their job, or it affects those hooks. It doesn't allow the rod doesn't play into the jumping, the running, the loading up that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But then you get into a 10XD.
Right.
And you this hook, for those of you watching, for those of you not, that's a big freaking treble.
That's a beast of a hook. Yeah.
That is a heavy gauge. You can't flex this one with your fingers. You're not going to break this one.
I don't even know. It looks like a saltwater hook. It's almost like a size 2 or something. It's huge. Yeah.
And there's a reason that they're that big on that. Now, granted, I've taken 10XDs and put lighter wire hooks on them over the years and stuff playing around. But there's a reason most of your hooks on these giant crankbaits are so big. Because now you're going to a rod that is its sole purpose is to throw that big thing out there.
Tow a water skier. Yep.
This is big bait fishing. A lot like glide bait fishing.
Right. Or swim bait fishing. Yeah. Right.
You're going into big bait fishing. So you're looking less for that real soft load, that finessey rod that's conducive for these hooks and these little bitty baits.
Right.
Now you're going into something that you're trying to just get it out there and get it down there.
Yep.
And get it back in. So you're going to like a longer 7-footer, upper 7, an 8, even an 8-footer, you know, and we're going into like heavy, moderate, fast now.
Yep.
Something big, and it's going to allow you to throw that bait without wearing yourself out. And really and truly, you're trying to get it down there. And when that fish eats, you just want that rod to load up a little bit parabolically. You're not trying to get that real soft. Yeah. You just want some load throughout that rod because
it's a different hook. Yeah.
It's a different hook. And that's the biggest thing is that hook's easy. You're going to be able to drive that big hook, and you don't have to worry near as much about flexing it, any of that stuff. And when you hook one on a big bait like that, you see a lot of guys. Go watch Brandon Polinick, fork throwing one. They hook them. They get that rod down a lot of times in the water and wrench them to the boat because it is a Mike Tyson in the boxing ring fight.
Right. Nothing gentle or finesse about it. Right. Yeah.
Finessey or general about it. It is big bait fish. Same way with a glide bait. You see those guys get into them. They are wrenching them till they get there and boat flip them. You're taking the finesse side out. So you're looking more for a rod that you can comfortably throw something that big on more than you are all the little details we talked about earlier with the
which makes perfect sense because it's just a totally different application, right?
Exactly.
Big bait fishing.
Yeah, and you want the longer handle. You know, you might go into like a 15-inch handle or something because it's a totally different beast. And the guys that are really good, you know, they might be listening. They're a big glide bait fisherman or something. they're going to be able to wrap their head around a rod for that a lot quicker than a guy that fishes the Ohio River and throws these little bitty square bills for 12 inches. That jump into that is going to be a totally different ball game.
Seismic. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Orders of magnitude, different animal.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It really is closer to saltwater fishing or musky fishing than most of the bass stuff you do.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, with the biggest thing that you have to think about with all this is treble hooks, because you're not throwing a big hook. You might have three, and having the perfect rod, especially on the traditional size crankbaits. Here's what it accounts for. You're gonna have the days where those fish are eating it so good. They're getting in their crushers.
Choking it. Yeah.
Choking it. They get in the corner of their mouth and they've got 2 or 3 of the treble.
Right. Yeah.
And that fish you can catch that fish on a flipping stick,
Right.
But the day where that 6-pounder nips that back hook and he's got one of your treble hooks and it's skinned it.
Yeah.
That's where that perfect rod comes into play for landing that fish. And the way I tell people is like, the guys that are throwing a 7-foot medium heavy fast, and they're like, this works fine. I'm like, yeah, it works fine. But if you had a good crankbait rod, it's going to work great when they're eating it good. When they're eating great, you're going to be clear. And when you get that giant that barely got a hold of it, it's going to play into that. You don't know when that's coming. I mean,
never when you expect it, right?
Never when you expect it, but you don't be caught with your pants down when that happens.
Sure.
Yeah. Caught with the wrong thing in your hand, So it just comes down to covering all basics with a great crankbait rod.
It's interesting. You said it a couple of times, and it's so interesting. I've never really thought of crankbaiting because I think of it as power fishing. I've never really thought of it as finessey, but as I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm thinking about it and I'm looking at these hooks, that's the first time I've ever had someone show me that demo where you hide 2 of the 3 of the treble hooks and just look at the one. I really haven't thought about the hooks that way before because it is a big hook,
Right.
That's really it. It's much closer to finesse fishing than it is anything else. It reminds me of all the stuff we're trying to get done with BFS, or fishing for freshwater trout with tiny little moving lures with treble hooks and things like that. It's the same principles. That's fascinating stuff. I have to confess I probably was rounding that corner a little bit. You know what I mean? Just because I don't think a 12-pound line is finesse, right? But but it doesn't mean that it's not, right? We've talked about the term. I'm always curious because you guys are so dialed, and I know you're so intentional and specific about every single detail of every single thing you do. Let's talk about the hardware and the knots for a second too. And I know this is mostly about the rods, and you've done a beautiful job of covering that for us with a bunch of useful detail. Are you a big swap out your hooks and split rings and stuff kind of person? Or are you doing that? I mean, they've gotten so much better. Like I remember a day when the only thing you got was like a not very sharp Aberdeen hook that was crummy, and you know what I mean? And so we're buying high quality hooks and swapping them out. And I still do some of that in saltwater and stuff. Like at risk of asking you to give away secret sauce, I'm not trying to have you give away any juice that you've, worked years and years to have in competition, but are you starting with them out of the box? Are you swatching them? Does it depend? Are you playing with sizes for buoyancy and different applications? You mentioned downsizing to experiment. Like, talk to me about the hooks and the terminal a little bit.
So the biggest thing when it comes to, for me, I'll practice fish a tournament with stock hooks. I remember when I was a kid buying Bandit, 200s, and it's nothing against Bandit or
great baits, but they were terrible hooks.
They had no good hooks on them. They were janky.
Right.
So, oftentimes, most times before like a tournament, I'm changing my hooks out.
Okay.
And I like a Ryugi or an Ichikawa. That seems to be where I've leaned towards. But that's not saying anything bad about stock hooks. It's just in a tournament, I need that little bit of edge. I can't leave any stone unturned. I got to dot all my T's and dot all my I's and cross all my T's. So
fishing for $500,000, man, every bite matters.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, that's it, right? Like, but so I've heard different people, like some people say, okay, if I'm going to be throwing in cover, I'm going to go with a heavier hook. And some people actually go the opposite, say, I'm actually going to stay with a lighter hook around the cover. And if I get stuck, I can bend it out of there and I don't lose the bait, I lose the hook. Like, thoughts or guidance on that kind of stuff, or modifications besides just replacing for during the actual weigh-in days, tournament days, going with the best hook you can possibly get? You messing around with sizes or wire gauges or anything for specific applications? Not really.
Like running through heavy cover, I like to tend to go towards like a Mustad triple grip.
Okay.
And, like I think it's a KVD triple grip is
Mm-hmm.
what they call it. And it's got a little bit more of a closed point.
Slightly inward geometry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it comes through cover a little bit better.
Okay.
Size wise, I normally try to keep it close to stock.
Okay.
There might be times where I upsize a little bit, but I don't want to oversize them a lot of times because
It can affect the bait action, right?
it affects a lot. And
Depth, action.
right, but that triple grip coming through cover does a lot for me because it keeps it from getting hung up. Like we said, the inward of the points,
Mm-hmm.
and when those fish get a hold of it, a triple grip's great for holding on to them.
Yeah.
I know I just said I'm a big Ryugi Ichikawa fan hooks, but that is one time where I tend to lean out and go towards like a Mustad or something and apply that for reeling through cover.
Yeah.
Great treble hook in the sense that when they get it, they're pretty much locked into it most of the time. So, and when you're reeling it through heavy cover, a lot of those fish are going to be reacting to it quick, and they normally eat it really well. Reeling it through cover. Normally, when I'm fishing those laydowns and stumps, that reaction bite is very aggressive, and they eat it very well.
It's like that chatterbait bite where they knock it slack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something where I feel like I'm going to get a better chance of that fish getting a hold of that bait. Whereas just reeling it down rock banks here or something, the Ryugis, the Ichikawa, I'm going for strictly as sharp as I can get for that one that barely gets the back hook or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. Yeah. And if you're not familiar with either of these brands of Japanese hooks, extremely high quality, chemically sharpened, very hard, very strong for diameter wire, the kind of hooks that don't bend much and will break instead of bend, but it takes a lot to break one. It's a premium hook for sure. Yeah.
And a notable, an honorable mention as far as that goes is the Gamakatsu G Finesse. For those of you that want to go a tackle store and probably find them just about anywhere, like a Gamakatsu.
Yeah, I was debating whether I was going to ask you like where you're getting your Ryugs around here because they're hard. They're still hard to find. I brought some. I was just in Japan and I brought some talismans and some other stuff back. It's like I can't get my hands on them here. Like I know Tackle Warehouse and some people have them, but they're never in stock. And I sign up for the notify me, and if you don't click that email, like the second it gets in your inbox, it's like you don't get them. You know.
So if you want something that's more readily accessible and still phenomenal, go into that light wire, strong, extremely sharp. A Gamakatsu G Finesse is a great standby. And I carry a lot of them in the boat with me because there's times where, you know, I've got a bag of Ryugi, I've got a bag of Ichikawas, I've got a bag that's got some of the Mustads, I always keep them with me just in case I need them. And I have plenty of confidence throwing a Gamakatsu on there.
Sure.
I'm not sitting there going, dang, I can't believe I'm fishing this tournament with the Gamakatsu G Finesse instead of a Ryugi Pierce. You know, that never crosses my mind. They're all great. So it's a good hook. It's a good hook for those of you who want to be able to go find it easily.
Yeah. And talk to me about knots. You got a preferred knot?
I tie a Palomar on everything that I throw.
Hey man, it's a strong knot. It's a consistent knot. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's all you need then.
Is crazy. I have had people ask me for years, leader knots. I don't even know what I tie. Easton Fothergill taught it to me. But it's not an FG.
Okay.
I know one leader knot. I know one regular knot. I mean, I know like a cinch knot or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, I'm on everything.
Save it for your anchor rope, right?
Like, exactly. So it works. It's tried true. It's as tough as it gets. I feel like I don't have knots come undone. I don't remember the last time I had a knot come undone. So
there you go. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Well, man, this has been awesome. I selfishly, I look forward to talking to guys competing at your level just because I always learn something. You guys are so dialed and have spent so much time being thoughtful about it and have learned so much from actual practical experience. Like one of the things you and I were talking about before we started recording is that we share a gear problem, right? and God help me, my wife ever sells all my stuff for what I told her I paid for it. You know, that would be a bad day for everybody. But there's an element of, you know, results talk and everything else walks. And while generally I feel like you mostly get what you pay for, and if you can, you know, buy once, cry once, get the best you can stand, and it's usually worth it. But, you know, there's hits and misses, and the only way to know for sure is to try it and use it yourself. So for someone who's deliberately tweaked and experimented for so many years in a competitive environment just to try to get better yourself and get better results, for you to be willing to kind of let us look behind the curtain and draft off you a little bit and learn from you is just immensely valuable. And I definitely learned some things today. I haven't built a cranking rod in a while, but this is the this is the action I love for my top water rods too. The same kind of, just action that you're talking about. And it's, they're not as common as they once were. But man, when you get it, I can't remember the last time I had like, one of my favorite things in the world is spring and summer on Gunnersville throwing Reaction Innovations Vixen. And I don't know what it is about that bait on that lake. But and knock on wood, watch, I'll go lose 100 fish next year. But I can't remember, ever since I went to that soft rod, I can't remember
Right.
the last time I had one come unbuttoned. You know what I mean? And I haven't gotten that much better as an angler. It's just purely the equipment helping you instead of fighting against you. And it's the same kind of concept with the I don't know why it's easy for me to think of that as finesse and keeping the fish buttoned up, but I don't always think that way about crankbaits. I don't know.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Well, another thing to note too is when we're talking about building a perfect crankbait rod or getting a perfect crankbait rod, a crankbait rod can also be used for a lot of other things. A crankbait rod can be great for throwing a chatterbait.
Yep.
And that's a totally different wormhole. We're not going to go,
Yeah, I thought about asking that question. We need to get you back and do a whole episode on chatterbait rods.
right.
Yeah.
That's a huge, whole nother conversation. But to keep it short, a crankbait rod can be a great chatterbait rod.
Yeah.
Without diving off into it today. A crankbait rod can be great for throwing a lipless. Crankbait rod can be great for throwing a jerkbait. Maybe not if you're throwing glass because it's going to wear you out.
Yeah.
But normally like those shorter ones that we were talking about earlier.
Some size top waters. Yeah.
Top water's great.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch that can be done. It's a moving bait rod.
Yeah.
Essentially. So a lot of that can kind of come into play. If a guy goes and builds a 7-foot medium heavy or medium moderate crankbait rod, he can probably get away with throwing a 3/8 ounce chatterbait on it, a 1/2 ounce chatterbait, as well as the Vixens, the big top waters,
Right.
the traps, lipless baits,
Right.
a jerkbait. Even if it's not glassy, you're not going to wear yourself out. There's a lot to be done with a good crankbait rod.
Yep.
Especially in treble hook department, but even some stuff like a chatterbait or a small swim bait.
And it's just interesting that it seems like the fashion has been towards the faster rods, and everybody's like, I think there's some anglers who maybe haven't even tried that more moderate, like you're saying, parabolic action. It's sweet. It can do a lot of, it can help you. You know what I mean? It can do a lot of things for you. It can be pleasant to fish. Not that it's for everything, right? I don't want to drive a great big single hook home at depth with that, but that's not what I'm trying to do with it, right? So,
no.
Yeah. Well, man, as we sit here recording this, we're the week after Thanksgiving. It's the first week of December. Weather's terrible everywhere. It's terrible here in Alabama. It's terrible. I know you say it's drizzling and cold there in Arkansas, but you guys getting ready to get the season cranked up, huh? What does your schedule look like?
It's actually exciting. We get to start off in Alabama at Gunnersville and Lake Martin, so that'll be something neat.
Yeah, it will.
Instead of, I always say it's so weird to fish all winter around here and then have to completely switch gears and go to Florida to start. I love it. I've always done well in Florida, but it's a complete switch of gears to go down here and start fishing. So to winter fish and then go into winter fishing to start the season, it'll be cool. Man, we've got 2 grinder river tournaments this year where I'm going to be square billing and chatterbaiting a lot, so that's exciting. And then we go to some just unique places at unique times. I mean, we go to South Carolinas and fish some places that should be really good. And then of course we end the year smallmouth fishing up north. It's going to be a good season. It's going to be unique. The most unique part is going to be starting not in Florida. So it's going to bring in a totally different deal for the people at home watching. And
well, selfishly, given that I'm in Alabama, I'm glad you guys are starting here, because the chances of me getting to a weigh-in and getting to hang out at an expo or something is way bigger. But I hadn't thought about that difference in seasonal transition. Yeah, that's it is a big difference. We'll see. Or watch. We'll have the warmest winter ever. It won't make any difference at all. You'll be summer fishing at Gunnersville, right? Like, who knows?
Who knows? But
I'm done trying to figure out the weather.
Exactly. But it's going to be a good season. It's going to be cool, and we've got a lot of neat stuff on the in the playbook this year on the schedule. So
I got to tell you, I've talked to a lot of Elite Series anglers. I've never talked to anyone who's got a better looking hat on than you've got right now. Look at that.
I love this hat.
I love that hat too. That's my very favorite.
worn out, but it is my favorite hat.
No, that's my favorite one too. Kerry Ward at Red Wolf Laser Works makes those for us, and I have never been. I don't know that I've ever had another hat with a patch on it, but man, I love that one.
This one is good.
It's my favorite one too. I put a smile on my face when you got on and you were wearing it.
If you go to my social media, the people at home, you will see this hat on there a lot. I'm one of those guys that, like, when I find a good fitting hat, a
You
comfortable hat,
stick with it. That's right.
I wear it till the threads come out of it.
You and me both, brother. That's one. Okay, so I'm glad you brought up your social media. Let's give it to everybody. What's the
Okay.
best way to follow you?
Beau Browning Fishing on Instagram and Facebook. That's a great way to keep up. Instagram is going to be, at least as of right now, a lot more of my regular posting. Facebook kind of has some tournament coverage on it. It's not near to the scale of Instagram. You're going to see the fishing, the hunting, the around the house with the dog,
with Gus.
Gus, the menace down here as he walks.
I'm feeling bad. I've talked to you so long. It's like I got to let you go see him throw a ball for Gus.
No, he's fine. Trust me, it's drizzling rain outside and cold. I'm not going out there to throw a ball.
Oh well, you can throw it. You can throw it inside and tear everything up, right? I've seen that movie with a golden before.
Exactly.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, he's big and clumsy.
Well,
but there's a lot of good stuff on my social media, and then as of every year, I'm trying to get better and better with showing the behind the scenes stuff and the true life of a professional fisherman. It's not just what they see on camera, via Bassmaster or what they see.
Are you going to put up hours and hours and hours and hours of highway trailer footage driving? Because that y'all drive more than you fish.
We drive.
I'm not sure people realize how much y'all drive.
We are professional road warriors.
Literally.
Professional fishermen. So there's I know this morning I was doing work on my trailer. I had a flat.
It never ends. It never ends.
Stuff like that. It happens on the road. It happens at home. It's just, we've got lots of mechanics that go on our life as far as working on boats and trailers and everything else. So there's a whole other side to it other than casting a line and walking across the stage and autographs. So there's a lot behind the scenes.
Yeah. That top 10 that makes the weigh in on the final day, you didn't see the other that are driving home already headed to go to the next place to practice, right? Like,
And another deal is too, on those social medias, you can reach out, guide around here in Central Arkansas.
Oh, nice. Which lakes do you guide on?
Lake Washita, Lake Hamilton, and Lake DeGray. So I
lakes.
Everything but crappie. We can go fish for. I don't like crappie fishing, and I don't have any shame in saying that.
Well, there you go. Hey, at least you know what you like. I don't. If y'all have never fished Washita, it is in the middle of the Washita National Forest and managed by the Corps and the Department of the Interior, so you can't just bulldoze a piece of the shoreline and put up a dock or a resort or a lake or anything. Like, it's very regulated, and it is literally one of the most beautiful lakes I have ever been on. It's almost like a lake that time forgot. Love that lake. And it's excellent fishing. I mean, stripers, largemouth, smallmouth. There's guys catching trout near the dam, parts of it. There's walleye and sauger. There's great catfish fishery. There's a great crappie fishery. So I hear you. You're not interested. Not going to push that on you.
Not my thing, but we can go catch 45-pound stripers and all the fun stuff.
Well, my father-in-law and I spent so much time on there. We used to fish like there. You probably know the lake pretty well. He kept his boat at Mountain Harbor. Right. And so we hit a bunch of places by there, and there was a place there, trout pens. There's a point at 18. Mm-hmm. There's a couple places we go all the time, and it would happen like once or twice a summer. You'd be out there. We're just chasing spotted bass mostly, but there'd be some largemouth in with them, and we're all trying all our different Japanese topwaters and all this stuff. And we had gotten to where we were super tuning these little JDM Scorpion 1000 reels and using like 8-pound mono to cast these tiny 65, and then all of a sudden, skloosh, and it's like, I mean, it's nothing to catch a 25-pound striper on that lake. You know what I mean? And you were not expecting that on your tiny little, ultralight topwater gear. It's pretty sporty. Yeah. And every once in a while we'd be going through you just come around a bend and there'd just be an acre of stripers just breaking, crazy. It's a great lake.
It is. We have some of the coolest fisheries right here and beautiful fisheries right here.
The natural state, they call it that for a reason. I was just up there trout fishing in northern Arkansas, and I'm going to be taking my son up there again in January, weather and schedule permitting. We're scheduled. I hope it's going to happen. But Yeah, if y'all have never fished Washita or DeGray or Hamilton, like, how's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Via email or?
So either going on my Instagram and messaging me or
Okay.
email me at Beau Browning at Yahoo. So
All
that's
right.
the best
And
way
it
to
is
go.
BEAU,
Yes. BEAU.
as
Brown.
God intended it, not BO.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through this. So I should have brought it. I could show it to you. We have a ferocious fantasy fishing pool here in our office. And I decided last year I'm running our guys. That's the people that we sponsor. So, when you go in a tournament, I picked you. And the penalty of me losing is I got to listen to Jack talk trash.
Right.
And Jack actually didn't win. It's one of these ironic turns of events. It's me, our sales guy, Aaron Lowe, who we call Aaron. It's Jack, who knows a lot of you guys personally, has followed it
Right.
more closely than everybody. He really should probably, it'd be like the rest of us going against a Vegas handicapper. He probably ought to smoke us, right? And then David Ike Clanton, my purchasing guy, and who wins in the inaugural year with this championship belt we got made. Like, it's the real deal, David. David, I was doing well, and I forgot to I made selections late for a tournament. I got confused on the schedule, and even though I got the text, I don't know what happened. I somehow the text didn't make me pick a team, and so I was out. And then I think I don't remember how Jack's wheels fell off, but anyway, David's been very hard to live with ever since he beat us. So it's like I need anybody but David to win. So no pressure, no pressure, but
Catch them.
yeah, catch him, dude. I need you for reason. I know you're just trying to, make a living and feed yourself and have a future and everything. But there's those of us out here who need you in our office fantasy fishing pools. So I'm really glad they talked me into doing that. I had no idea how fun that was going to be, and getting your little Bass Track Live updates and all this kind of stuff.
That's funny. Well, good.
Good
Good.
stuff.
I'll try to pull the weight of the team then.
Well, thank you. We're counting on you. No pressure. But yeah, so y'all look Bo up, go fishing with him, and man, I think you're gonna have a great season. Like I said, I'll be back, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us, and please tell your dad I said hello. And we need to. You and me and Jack were supposed to fish, and we got weathered out. We need to do that again. Like I know your schedule's probably as bad or worse than ours, but you need to just let us know when is the time we can come do that. I really want to have this swim bait, glide bait versus BFS challenge me and Jack were going to do.
Right. Well, I've got the place to do it.
I know, and there will be no losers in that deal. Like, it's going to be awesome, and we'll video the whole thing.
Good. We can do it. We can definitely do it.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for your time, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe and download wherever you get your podcast content. Till then, we'll see you on the next episode of Mastering Rod Building.